Good morning, everyone. My name is Nada Talal from 12G1, and today I'm here to tell you more about the integumentary system. Starting off, the integumentary system is an organ system consisting of the skin, hair, nails, and exocrine glands. The skin is only a few millimeters thick, yet is by far the largest organ in the body. The average person's skin weighs 10 pounds and has a surface area of almost 20 square feet. The integumentary system protects the body's internal living tissues and organs. It also protects against invasion by infectious organisms and also protects the body from dehydration. The integumentary system is made up of 3 layers: the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis. The epidermis is the top layer of the skin and the part of the skin that you can see. Second, the dermis is the second layer of the skin and it's usually much thicker and does a lot for your body. Finally, the hypodermis, which is the bottom layer of the skin. And now we're gonna discuss each layer detailedly. So first of all, starting with the epidermis. The epidermis is the most superficial layer of the skin that covers almost the entire body surface. The epidermis rests upon and protects the deeper and thicker dermis layer of the skin. The epidermis is arranged into 5 distinct layers. First, the stratum corneum, which is the outer layer of your epidermis. It's made up of mostly keratin and lipids. It's well recognized as the barrier that prevents unwanted materials from entering and excessive loss of water from exiting the body. Moving on to the stratum lucidum, which is responsible for the capability of the skin to stretch. It also contains a protein that is responsible for the degeneration of skin cells. This thick layer also lowers the effects of friction on skin, especially in regions like the soles of feet and palms of hands. Third, the stratum granulosum, which is a thin layer of cells in the epidermis. The cells of the stratum granulosum accumulate dense basophilic keratohyalin granules. These granules contain lipids which, along with the desmosomal connections, help to form a waterproof barrier that functions to prevent fluids lost from the body. 4. The stratum spinosum, which is a layer of the epidermis found between the stratum granulosum and the stratum basal. This layer is composed of polyhedral keratinocytes, which are joined together with desmosomes. The stratum spinosum is partly responsible for the skin's strength and flexibility. And finally, the stratum basal, which is the deepest epidermal layer and attaches the epidermis to the basal lamina. The cells in the stratum basal bond to the dermis via intertwining collagen fibers, referred to as the basement membrane. And as we can see here in this slide, on the right we can see a more detailed picture of the epidermis layer, which shows all the 5 distinct layers. And on the other side, we can see only the epidermis layer in a brief picture that shows the epidermis layer separately. And this is a picture of my model. And now moving on to the dermis. The dermis is the deep layer of the skin found under the epidermis. The dermis is mostly made of dense irregular connective tissue along with nervous tissue, blood and blood vessels. The dermis is much thicker than the epidermis and gives the skin its strength and elasticity. The dermis is arranged into 5 distinct layers. The erector pili is the first layer, and it's a tiny muscle that attaches to the base of a hair follicle at one end and to dermal tissue on the other end. In order to generate heat when the body is cold, the erector pili muscles contract all at once, causing the hair to stand up straight on the skin. 2. Sebaceous gland. And those are usually attached to hair follicles and release a fatty substance called the sebum into the follicular duct and thence to the surface of the skin. Third, hair follicle, and those are responsible for growing hair, which happens in cycles of 3 distinct phases. These follicles also determine your hair type, and when damaged, these follicles can stop producing hair, and by that, your hair growth cycle can slow down. 4. Blood vessels, and those blood vessels transport oxygen and nutrients to the skin and remove waste products. These vessels also transport vitamin D from the skin to the body. Finally, sweat gland, and the main function of sweat gland is to control the body temperature. So as the water in the sweat evaporates, the surface of the skin cools down. Moving on to finally the hypodermis. So basically, deep to the dermis is a layer of loose connective tissues known as the hypodermis, or subcutaneous tissue. The hypodermis serves as the flexible connection between the skin and the underlying muscles and bones, as well as a fat storage area. The areolar connective tissue in the hypodermis contains elastin and collagen fibers loosely arranged to allow the skin to stretch and move independently of its underlying structures. The fatty adipose tissue in the hypodermis stores energy in the form of triglycerides. Adipose also helps to insulate the body by trapping the body heat produced by the underlying muscles. And here, as we can see on the left side, we have a picture of my model of the hypodermis layer. And finally, this is my final model that I made to illustrate more the integumentary system, and that helped me understand more the structure and the function of each layer of the integumentary system. And in order to get this model, I used some materials such as paint, a perfume container, glue, and clay. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.